All right, we're live. So we're starting the day off right. We're going to be discussing in this panel discussion accurate and precise AI. And I think to paint the broader context of the importance of accurate and precise AI, we're going to define some terms about society, about organizations, and their function in this macro and microcosm of actors. But before we go into the conversation, I'd love to introduce the speakers and have them tell you a little bit about who they are and what they do. So we're going to go down in alphabetical order. And as long as I know my alphabets, we'll start with Philip and go down the list.
Yeah. So I'm the founder of Different. I created that company a few years ago, and that ended up with the TwinFox.ai hypergraph platform. But that was after researching for 25 years a solution to my need of actually organizing objects or structured information in some kind of graph. And I was looking for a solution for a long time for that in industry during my 25 years as a consultant for large enterprises, 15,000 people and up. But I didn't really find the way that I wanted to organize that. So that is the journey that I started a few years ago now. So that's me. And it's really the enterprise solution architect, enterprise architect, that kind of roles I've had for a very long time.
Thank you, Philip. Rohit, would you like to say a little bit about yourself?
Good morning, everyone. Myself, Rohit. I have almost a decade of experience working with top investment banks like Barclays, Bank of America, Morgan Stanley, Goldman Sachs. So I majorly worked in algorithmic trading domain, focusing on the few areas like transaction cost analysis for doing the benchmarking of the algorithmic trading strategies, and also improvement of those algorithmic trading strategies using some of the AI techniques. And also we have another use case, which is market trade surveillance. So we surveil all the orders happening via bank. So we have rule-based system at the moment. So we are just slowly migrating towards more of AI-based models. But the major concern we have is like the financial impact, because if we are not able to pick the market manipulation trades, then regulatory will fine us. So we are very concerned because this is a very critical business for us. So we are just working on a lot of model testing to go live with the AI. So that's about me in brief. Yeah.
Thank
Over
you,
to you.
Rohit.
Yeah.
Sivaram, would you like to say a little bit about
Sure.
yourself?
Hello everyone, this is Sivaram. I've been working in IT for last 20 years. I started off from a database background, OLTP, OLAP, BI, and both services, consulting products. And then last 8 years, I'm into AI, ML, machine learning, and then deep learning right now in generative AI. At the moment, I consult a few startups as an AI solution architect and AI strategist. Plus, I also teach. So these three domains: retail, industrial, and fashion. These three are the domains of focus which I'm currently working on. Looking forward for the discussion.
Excellent. Now that we have all the actors on the screen identified, we can begin with some of the broader questions. What is an organization?
Well, I'll start there. I'll take this easy answer. I would say that an organization is basically a bunch of people, hopefully doing something good together. But an organization isn't that much. I've been working with organization 15,000 people up, so up to the 200,000 mark approximately. And those are some huge organizations. But then as a startup, that's a completely different world. I think, Sivaram, that is something that you know more about, right?
True. I think you're right. Everything starts with an idea or a differentiator or somebody who is an anomaly or where you feel this could be done differently. When you differ from the norm or when you want to take another pause, so that's when like you have a different business process setup. And once you are able to validate it, you need people to run your idea, validate your idea, expand your idea, and then you translate into the next level. So the thinking drives it, observation helps it, and then you frame it and collect and organize.
Yeah, so I have a different perspective. Yeah, but I agree with your responses as well. So it's like inclusion of diverse mindsets together, and then working on one common goal with some having the consensus, because this is a major challenge we face, like having diverse mindsets, but having a diverse team will definitely help us giving all the perspective, considering the edge cases, because as an individual we can only think in one direction. So having a diverse set of people in one team will give you all the perspective, and then we can build a better solution together. And then it's basically planning something which is big, because bigger teams needs a good planning to execute the goal. Yeah.
Excellent. Well, we discussed what an organization is. What about a business?
Yeah, so maybe I can add on the organization. So I think from my perspective, organization can be a NGO, non-profit organization, but there is no monetary outcome of coming from the organization. But we want to make, if we want to make it a business, so we need some product or we want some services. We have to define those services, define a good product which customer wants to buy or wants to acquire, so that we can sell it to the customers and make them happy and then get some monetary benefits. So I think that is what I feel is a business coming out of the organization. So yeah, over to you.
Yeah, I agree with that.
Essentially,
Yeah, go
yeah,
ahead.
good. Yeah, I'll let you, Philip, maybe I'll take a turn after that. Yeah, go ahead.
Okay. Yeah, no, I'm thinking very much of the business, really an organization in motion. So an organization that, as you say, Rohit, actually makes a value, improves the value from the inputs. And we can capture that as ideas in terms of capabilities, processes that run through the organizations that increases the value. And that value multiplier is, in my view, at least, very much of what a business should strive for. And if you don't add value to the inputs of your organization, you're doing something seriously wrong. But that is the transformation that is happening through an enterprise for the goods and services and everything that is provided. And then the AI age, I think, is very interesting to see how much of that value improvement will actually be done by other entities than just the human touch. So it'll be interesting to see and follow that.
So, yeah, I think if you look back a little, when there were commodities, there's a supply and a demand, versus I have X, you have Y. So there's a need wherein we all have to find our needs and we try to share, and we need to establish some code of conduct or business. So then, what value I'm going to add in your touch point for that, for which I can benefit of. So mutually, what we can exchange, and from paper books, ledgers, access, databases, and now smartphones. Like there was a business that existed in paper book, and the same business evolved because people save time. So that way, the person who was running paper book lost money to the person who got access workbooks. The person who was running access workbooks lost money to the somebody who was doing digital business transformation. So there is someone who always adds value in terms of money, time, or the outcome, and that helps them to sustain, or else it may be the Nokia moment.
That's a good segue to what is a business model. You mentioned Nokia in a negative way. They went out of business. They didn't innovate. But what is a business model?
There is, sorry, I think we go similar line of thought. Yeah, Philip, I'll let you start, and then I'll put my thoughts. Yeah.
Yeah. But if I look at a business model, it's really the way that we do that value add through the business, the way that we go about doing the business itself. And that business model can be done in so many ways. I'm thinking very much of Osterwalder and the others really to define the business model. And even though that is in hindsight, it actually explains how we derive the business and how we actually run the business. And there are so many ways to actually do it, whether it's services, it's products, you can lease them, you can do subscriptions. We do SaaS today, which we didn't do previously. We rent things. And so the whole renting economy was something that it was completely different. Now we're running towards an algorithmic economy where you start to rent the actual algorithms of processing data out. And that is an interesting way of looking at it. So what will the business models of the future be, and how will we actually use AI? That's interesting. Oh, sorry about that.
See what I'm doing?
Yeah, sure. I think the Nokia thing. Every business starts with a demand. Okay. Every business starts with a demand. There's a need. What they are trying to fulfill. but how long they are able to correctly gauge the customer, understand the market. Like when smartphone era started, button phones are without, when there were no phones, like we have landlines, and then the innovation was whatever the smartphone era. But then moving away from keypad phone to smartphone. So it's not just finding an opportunity, it's also about consistently, like a marathon. My customers expect more, the business model changes, they want more than one thing in a smartphone. They want a camera, they want a scanner, they want to have apps, they want to buy something. So now business, the time, that the cycle time has changed. Like you start with some model, and then how you add more value, because the competition drives it. You may not be the first one, you may be the innovator of Kodak film, but then what happened to a first entrant? How you last long depends on how you survive. Like if you look back, Microsoft, they were a Windows company, and Amazon moved to establish like a cloud provider at that point in time, but now Azure is back to the race. So it's not just you innovate, how you sustain your innovation to keep up with your competition. That kind of decides how long you will be in the market.
Yeah, definitely. I agree with you, Shubham. A good example of Microsoft, how they have picked up the business in like cloud business. So definitely, so if you want to define some business model, you should know what are the customer needs, what they want. So you have to continuously do the customer analysis of their needs. So we have to understand what are their needs, and then probably we sell the needs, we make them happy. Instead of selling the product, we have to be selling some emotions as well. It's not always about financial selling the product. So customers should feel happy buying the product, or maybe it's helping customers to be more fulfilled in their life, or adding some happiness in their life. So we have to design the model, plan the business in such a manner that we can build a really good product which is fulfilling the customer needs. And then we have to keep evaluating, because this world is ever moving, like it's not constant. So it's moving every day. So customer changes their requirements. So retaining the customers is also a very big challenge people face. Initially they acquire customers, but retaining them for a longer duration is also a big challenge every company faces. So the key have to innovate each and every point of time. Like this AI is coming up, so all the organization is trying to we visit their models, business models, to try to fit in with the AI, because if they don't, then they will go away. So so that is what I feel from the business model. Yeah, over to you, Jocks.
I've heard some very interesting terminology used through the description of these definitions. An organization is a group of people that have some mission. If it's in the context of a business, it's to transform inputs into outputs for a greater value add. And the business model means that there are different components to that business and how that value is created or transformed. And there's all these different modalities of whether you're solving a want or a need, and that sustained want or need or relationships or a pricing model, reduced cost, all these different variations of a business model allow you to become a player in the market and sustainably uh, live the lifespan of evolution of that organization as you adapt and evolve to scale or grow or just become entrenched in your defined market in your territory. Um, but these are all just theoretical words that we're throwing out there. What is a business domain?
Let me start maybe. So, when I first entered the industry, it's like you have to get a job, and then when you enter it, okay, I work for Microsoft Xbox. So there, how it works? Okay, somebody manufactures it, somebody ships it, it lands all the way to somebody in US. Okay, it gets manufactured all the way in South Asia, and there is a service center in Mexico. So then you get to know, oh, this is the supply, this is the chain, and this is where things come. You try to understand, and there e-commerce is a separate business, and you have the business, how it works, the way it works, the data it collects, and what are the different touch points of it. That gives you a perspective for everything that we do in our life. There is a service, there is a business, there is a touch point, there is some data, there is an organized set of of functional flow. So these different domains, I would say, like it can be e-commerce, or it can be specifically supply chain, or any industry specific, product specific, we could consider.
Yeah, definitely. I agree with you. So what I feel the business domain is basically you can't do everything on this earth, right? So you have to be very clear what is your expertise, and then you can build the business model on top of it. You can't do everything. If you're expert in one area, you can build a really good product, and you can be efficient in implementing and manufacturing, or anything, building the product. So you have to be very restricted towards your domain. You have to decide what domain you're going to focus. So there are different domains, as we all know, like a financial domain, and then we have e-commerce, supply chain, cloud, AI. So we have to be very clear what domain we are targeting. Otherwise, we'll ended up any we won't conclude the product. We will just lost in this world where all domain existed. So we have to define the domain first, and then build the business model on top of that domain. So that is very important element of solving the problem.
Mm. Yeah, I agree. And I was thinking of the previous conversation as well in terms of the business outcomes that we're looking for our customers. And that goes hand in hand with the domain. If you're not specific about your domain, it's very hard to actually help the customers to an outcome, because you want to serve similar customers so that they all can get similar benefits. Without considering that and focusing specifically on something that you can do great and the way that you actually do that value add. That is how you help customers to their outcome, because they have an outcome that they seek, and you are helping them. That is where the business models also go in. And I think, Parkin, you managed to piece this together in a really nice way for getting to that insight. So yeah, for the business domain, that's the specialty. That's where you actually drive the business that your customers need. So that you match your expertise, your specialties with those that can actually help the customers to their outcomes the most.
Excellent. So we define domain as some area of knowledge or some scope of work that can be defined of how a business model is built around. What about an industry?
Yeah, that's a really good term.
Mm.
Similar to what we define as a domain. So industry is quite similar, but it seems like a some bigger term, like defining the industry, like the collection of multiple domains, focusing on solving one common areas. So that's what I feel as an industry. Yeah, from my perspective.
If you consider, probably within an industry, there could be multiple business processes, and those
Right.
business processes can relate to certain domain. Like for example, in a healthcare industry, you will have multiple business processes wherein it could be sales, or it could be your procurement systems, or it could be your supply chain systems, or it could be your the kind of employment training and the industrial setup, your offices, factory, the requirement needs, what you buy, your procurement, everything. Although the business is the same, but what you operate in and out, your operating procedures, your value, and the technical skills what you carry out would be very very different. So these differentiators are what, like you graduate from, like everybody has that certain amount of graduation, then you look at what is your specialization in which industry, and then which domain and what specialization. So again, like what Rohit mentioned, you cannot do everything, and as well as like Philip mentioned, you need to know what business closely aligns to what you work with, in a form of trying to aggregate it, and see where you are your closest fit, and where does this fit in. This is a domain specific problem, or it is industry specific problem, industry wide problem, applicable in multiple industries. You need to put a different perspectives.
I completely agree there, Sivam, in terms of the skill set. And that shines the light on why industry specialization is so important, because in the beginning of our careers, we just look at the industry as, okay, it's just something broad that just defines kind of a categorization. You're slicing the pie. But once we get that experience, we start to see those differences and how processes are so different in healthcare, from retail, from supply chain, and where we see that some businesses, they look like that they are innovative in some area, but it's actually their supply chain practices that make them superheroes in an area. And so the industries are interesting because learning how the business processes work means that you can derive some unique advantages. And that goes for consultants as well. When you specialize in one domain, you can actually start helping those customers that have similar business processes. You have rules and regulations, you have processes that in are regulatory, defined by regulatory requirements. And if you don't know them, you will just do a lot of damage. But if you know them, you can actually leverage them for your advantage.
I like these words: categorization, slicing, focus. These are good words, especially when we look at industry, which is a grouping of organizations that are sort of focused on solving the same kinds of problems or working with the same kind of resource. Forestry, mining, fishing, those are, or agriculture, right? Like transforming the same kinds of inputs into outputs. Um, Now let's zoom in a little bit and look at a business use case.
So business use case in how I think about it is very much the application of something in a business. So we use, for instance, AI to categorize things in the marketing. So we have some signals that are coming in, we have some sentiments, we derive, okay, so is this a positive sentiment, is it negative? So that is a use case, for instance, for AI in marketing to understand what are our customers saying about a specific product. So these kinds of business use cases are important to understand to actually apply a technology effectively. So that is how I would immediately look at the business use case. And unless you know the use case, it's very hard to apply your business to something. So if you don't know what you're actually going to supply for the use case, it's very hard to understand your customer, why they are doing things in a certain way. But once you start to learn that, you know the business use cases, you know how to apply technology or processes or a way to organizing capability or the information supply chain around something so that you can actually make a ton of difference in it.
Very good. I was trying to look at an use case could be something. If you have expertise, it could be an acknowledgement of a problem, or it could be an awareness of a destination, or it could be you have a certain idea, but you haven't deep dive in that particular direction. So maybe you have a tangible outcome, but the path for it, you need to take a deep dive. Like it could be optimizing a delivery time. For example, customers say it takes 3 days, but when you want to solve that problem, you want to say delivery time reduction, then you look at touch point. So it's a focused solving of a certain element of business, or you are aware of it, or you acknowledge it, or you have some aspirational goal which you try to do a deep dive, which you can consider it as a atomic use case.
Yeah, I agree with what you have mentioned. So for me, use case seems like a smaller segment of business. So you define business model and then you have multiple use cases. So like in financial industry, you have multiple use cases like same customer we are targeting for their consumer banking needs, like providing them loans, credit cards, saving account, and then also taking care of their wealth, like providing wealth management, trading business, helping them uh, invest in mutual funds or some other funds. So same customer, same domain, but having different use cases. So we can leverage all these use cases to make a lot of money from the same customer because we know what they holds in their accounts. So we can sell the products based on their saving account balance. So it's like targeting the same customer with different use cases. So it is like having a bigger domain knowledge. So I think almost all the big banks does that. So they have all the areas of business, they target same customer, and then they sell the different products having different use cases with them. So that is a really good diversification of the business. So we can always make profit.
Interesting.
Yeah.
So the business use case is resolving some sort of problem to develop a solution and transfer value. Um, Now I want to compare how are business use cases and business models impacted by developments in technology. I think this goes back to the Nokia and innovation problem.
True.
Yeah. If we look at how things develop, it's usually not necessarily the technology. It's usually the processes that develop thanks to the technologies that enable those processes and those information supply chains that change. So I would say that suddenly when we have the ability to actually run processes faster or in a different way, we have suddenly new capabilities to enter the market. So that is how I see that the use cases are impacting the business model, because they are enabled by having fine-grained access to data or better database products, better graph technologies, or other things that enable new ways of engaging the customers, engaging with with subscription models. Suddenly, small businesses can actually run a full-blown SaaS thanks to third parties that enable those technologies to be fully integrated as one package. You just buy a small subscription, and they solve everything like Paddle does with SaaS or with the taxes for SaaS, which is amazing.
Yep. I think you start with the business, probably a retail chain in one town or one city. You get a lot of reception, and then you try to, your aspirations grow big. I want to go to 2 city. I want to go to 3 city. I want to go to 5 city. So if you want to scale out, one, human labor; second, technology; third, how do you integrate all of this labor, technology, supply, demand? That's when you look for a solution or something which can radically help you. So I think it's like first you learn to walk with your product, and when everybody needs the product, you have to run. So when you can't run, you hire people who can run for you, and then when still you have more demand, you hire people to fly for you. So I think technology enables, if you know how you're going to make more profits and people like you, and you are in demand. Yeah.
Yeah, I completely agree. Like how you scale the product. So you build the product, you had the business model, you have everything set. But if you're getting a lot of demand, how will you serve the customers? Like talk about these big giant platforms like Instagram. So there is a huge people using it. Like every, I think we have 7 billion population on the globe. So a lot of users are using it. So I think they have solved the problem, like making it scalable. So we can leverage the right technology to make it accessible to the huge population. Otherwise, if it is taking too much time to load, like talk about Amazon website, Amazon platform, so they have also built it very efficiently to be accessible from any location. You can load it very fast. Talk about YouTube. So these platforms are giants. So they have leveraged the technology to the extreme for the customers. So I think technology plays a very crucial role in all the domain, I feel. So there are various technologies existed, and there are various use cases. So all use cases can't fit with one technology. It's vice versa. So we have to be very careful what technology we are choosing for a specific use case. So like I work in a time series use case trading business. So we use time series database. If we start using relational database, it will be messed, right? So we cannot use different technologies for different use cases. So we have to be very careful what we are choosing, and then we can find a good solutions for the customers. So I think it is very important element in implementing the products nowadays.
So I've heard constraints, I've heard scalability, I've heard satisfying multiple customers or having higher aspirations. I think these are good kind of ideas that we're painting here. Now, to make things a little bit more complicated, I want to introduce the idea of information. What is the role of information in a business?
I think the more people you add, the more you need to communicate, or the more you need to align. If two people are talking in the room, there is two conversation. If when four people, the probability increases, how it can go from edge to edge. So then, how do you track, trace, communicate, update? There has to be some form or shape. And again, how data is stored? Is it accessible for everybody? These things lead to the catch for information and how you store and align.
Mm. I'm thinking immediately of Bob Metcalf and how the value of a network increases exponentially based on the number of participants. And the same things goes, I think, with information complexity. And we're all communicating creatures. And in a small team, we don't have that high of a complexity. But when the complexity of the enterprise and the business really increases, we need more and more organization to have that information accurate and correct. And also we need more and more curation and more people. So if we look at the organization being kind of a small sphere in the beginning, we have a tiny crust, but it's more aligned with the central part. But the more we grow that organization, we still have a tiny crust around, but we have a lot of things in the middle that needs to happen and become organized. And a lot of that is the information management to deal with all of that complexity of the organization. So I think that the value of the organization increases as well, but also the needs for organizing it so that it's available to that crust whenever it's needed for serving customers, because it's the heroes that are the nearest to the customers that actually make a difference.
Yeah, I also agree. What I feel is there are three terms I feel. So data, information, and knowledge, right? So data is something which is raw. No human can understand. If you make it understandable to the human, then it is information. So it's like describing the data is information. So we have given some observations, some collected data. So if we want to know what is the, like, let's say we have employee data. So if we want to know what is the average age of the employees, what is the average salary. So I think all these things are information we are retrieving from the data and then further using it for creating some knowledge base and then further using it for creating some product, some solutions. It's like understanding the data because we have a lot of data nowadays. Everywhere we are collecting the data in different formats like raw data, text data, or like a video data, image data. So we want to understand what information they are giving us. So I think it's very important element to innovate what data we have and then leveraging data in a very good manner. So I think it's very important to retrieve the right information from the data.
Thank you very much for making that distinction between those three layers. Everybody likes to say we're data driven. We're data driven. We make decisions on data. Data is worthless unless you contextualize it into information. And information is worthless if it's not put in the context of how that gives you knowledge, timely knowledge. And knowledge is worthless if it's not used to convert it into some sort of action. So all these things are worthless unless they're aligned in the way that it helps the business model execute in the market. So now let me ask you this. How does the quality of information, because that is worthless unless it's contextualized, how does the quality of information impact business decision making?
If you
Very
don't know
interesting
what,
question.
yeah, go
Yeah, go
ahead.
ahead.
Please.
Very excited.
Yeah, go ahead.
Exciting question.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
All right. So the quality of information, I mean, if you just have data and if you don't know what you're doing, you have no context for it, it's just data points. So what do you do with those data points if they're not in the context where you can actually do anything? It doesn't drive action like you're so excellently putting it. So that data of you cannot measure the quality of data because these are just data points. How do you know if they're good or bad? So in the word itself is if we don't have the quality of the data, information, and knowledge, we need to be able to measure it. And the only way to measure the accuracy of your data, the accuracy of your information, or the accuracy of your knowledge is in hindsight of the higher levels of that pyramid, the DA, KW, or with the I for insight in the middle, because you're able to see through the context whether the data makes sense. And that is how you start to see that you have quality in your data. The same goes for information. If you actually know and have the knowledge around the information, you can actually start to put the measurements and tests in place for having the information accurate. So this is an important part of it. But how does that impact decision making? Well, if you're not having the necessary knowledge or that knowledge is resting on incorrect foundations with the information in the data, and those are not put together into a cohesive system, well, you'll be making the wrong decisions. And those wrong decisions, sometimes they're good enough because they might be based on intuition, but sometimes you might make some significant blunders. Like I mentioned in the video yesterday, well, the cost of prevention is low. The cost of corrections is way higher, but the cost of failure is enormous in comparison.
Nice. I'll tell one of my like when I work for Microsoft. If you look through the history, you would see Microsoft has given a 1 billion free console warranty. everybody starts collecting data correctly, but do they maintain data correctly? The challenge was when you get a first version of data at time t1 and you get time t3 data and then you get time t2 data, then your latest update is t2. So t3 is overridden. So people start with fairly underestimating sometimes or not knowing the complete business of how to organize. uh, Loss of information will lead to, again, a trade-off what you mentioned, business reputation or cost of how do you reverse it. Once you have accumulated enough amount of data, you don't have trace of it, then the quality goes even poorer and poorer. We have moved in technology, but the problems still remain the same. Any In terms of the latency, in terms of how you update the sequence of update, every business has their own systems. It's not the same. So I think the information, starting with the information is one. How consistently you save it correctly, and third is it reflecting the way how business wants insight? If you are not able to answer that question, that will reflect your quality of information and whether it's usable or not, which will cascade. And again, higher the data, poorer the outcome. Again, you need to pay a higher price for your next generation architecture.
Yeah, definitely. I think all these consequences are there if we lack in the quality of the data and also the information. So if we have the garbage data with us, definitely we cannot say it's a quality information because I mean we have the good system to retrieve the data in a good manner, but data is meaningless. So I think we have to be very careful, like while collecting the data, is it coming from an authentic source? Can we trust the data? How confident are we with the data, and then these parameters like whether this data is complete, is it partial. So if we have partial data, it won't complete the picture, and then we also have to be very careful with whether it is accurate or not. So if we get the accurate data, complete data, then only we can say we are getting the quality information. Then our further actions out of knowledge will be good enough to build the business. Otherwise, if you're lacking in the quality of information, then it is meaningless to proceed further. So I think there's a lot of effort going on correcting the data, how we can improve on the data confidence level, how we can improve the quality of information. So for customers, if you are giving some responses like if you have a chatbot, so we have to be very careful what responses we are giving. If our chatbot is trained on some wrong data, biased data, so it can give some offensive answers. So we have to be very careful while training the models, AI models, and collecting the information correctly. So there is one use case I can also talk about is driverless car. If a driverless car is not able to predict what is the correct object, so it can hit the object, right? So we have to be very careful while defining the quality of data. So these are the parameters are very important nowadays, especially in the AI era.
Yeah, I'd like to add there because I really like how you went into provenance and lineage and how important that is. And I would connect that back to what you said, Sivaram, around time and what happened. I was working with one enterprise, it was way back, but they actually had multiple warehouse systems that actually processed all of the data. And some information was actually discovered to be fed in a loop around those with time delays of about a day, where you have to have a self-reinforcing system that they found that there were some data loops in there because they didn't have any control over the provenance lineage of the information. And we're making incorrect decisions based on that because they were basing conclusions on data that was stale and that were actually influenced by old data, and it just went round. And I think that we have similar issues in AI as well, in terms of reiterating a lot of biases, like I talked with one of the SMPs yesterday. So we need to be very careful about the decisions that both the decisions that we make, but also the downstream decisions that others make based on, for instance, chatbots. We've seen those issues in the airline industry, but those are bound to become more if we're not careful.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, these losses are more in the financial world. If you're running some trading business, you're taking the real-time decision based on the data. So you have to be very confident about the correctness of the data. Otherwise, your decision will be completely wrong, and then we will ended up losing billions of money. So I think it's very careful to collect the correct data. and getting it from the authentic sources.
So one thing I really appreciate about this panel is that it's deeply technical. And so far in the conversation, we've been layering these fundamental little bits of insight or perspective to paint this richer picture. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to pretend to be a business figurehead and just say, why? Why do I need to care about the data? Why do I need to care about the information technology? Why do I need to care about all these things? I just want to make the decisions. I just want to deploy the money and get the money out. I just want to create value. Why are you restricting me? Why are you telling me we can't move faster?
Yeah, maybe I can start here. So let me tell you one story. So these banks were doing this trading business like let's say 20 years ago. So they were having a good relations with the customers. So customer comes to them, doing the business with them because they were giving them good coffee or maybe a good treatment, hospitality. But I think the era has completely changed. So even those customers wants data-driven reports. They want us to show, give us your reports, how we have been performing in markets, give us the data points. So you cannot lie about data, right? So you have to give them the correct data, tell them we have been doing really good, tell them the reports. You cannot just serve them well just by having good hospitality. So I think that's why it's very important to survive in this era. If you have data, good data, if you can show good data records, you're good to go. Otherwise, no one will trust nowadays. So it doesn't happen that way we used to do like 20, 30 years ago. So I think it's very important. I think you can do small business, but if it comes to the making it a big business, big billion business, like doing scalable business, you need data. You need data-backed decisions. Otherwise, you won't be able to take a big decisions. I think it's
I
very
would
important.
completely agree there. And looking at, so in essence, the digital information that we have internally and externally in the business, those are market signals that digital agents read, and you can't hide anymore. So early 2 decades ago or longer ago, and even more recently, we're able to hide from things that we published. But now it's immediate. We now know how CrowdStrike made a brilliant blunder this morning where they actually released a thing that actually crashed a lot of computers around the world, and that should be protection in software. You don't hide from those digital signals anymore. And that goes for reporting. You need to ensure that you have correct reports. You need to ensure that the data that you submit and the information that you share is actually correct. So it's so important to have this because you will make decisions. Those can be incorrect. You create a hypothesis. You need to follow up on that hypothesis and show if that hypothesis was good or not, and then go back and learn from it, because we're no longer a linear organization. We're complex adaptive systems in the entire organization and between organizations. And that means we all need to learn, become those learning organizations. How do we learn? We look at a hypothesis, we look at the outcome, we learn when we create a new hypothesis. And that means that we're information-centric. We are based on information in terms of all of the decision-making that we're doing. The speed of business today is not that you can just hope for the best and have only the intuition. You actually need to start learning, and learning rapidly from what is happening in the market. And you need a lot of help as well. And that help through AI, through advisors and others, that is also based on information. And that needs to be accurate in order to make the correct hypotheses, correct decisions. Automated decision-making hinge on that.
Yep. I think very good important points. One is reputation, and second is the change of business. If you have to look at in a food sector, today you have 10 minutes delivery. You place an order for a stock, you will get it immediately. 10, 20 years back, nobody would have thought a food will come from 5 kilometers in 10 minutes. You neither had the tech nor you had the setup. So these things have changed. So one is your survival becomes a question. Second is the new competitors who are able to give superior expertise. In all the cars, I do remember when one of the chats wherein from Ford, I think Ford has outsourced a lot of the technical component to Bosch and a few other suppliers, and they ensemble everything and then they build. Versus Tesla, a person who builds everything, who puts his tech everything. So there is one single focus of somebody who is trying to fit all the pieces versus somebody working with 10 vendors and trying to collaborate with them to, sorry, I'm very sorry, somebody who is trying to work and trying to achieve it. There are differences. Obviously, when you go along, you have to go along with them. You have to be aligned with them. When you pull the thread on your own, you will be faster. So your survival and the kind of disruption you are facing and how long you are going to be in business, all these things are, like you said, tech driven, information driven, customer driven, and the age of time is money, money is business. So time
Yes.
is equal to business.
Yeah, we all want to deliver magic, right? And so any sufficiently advanced technology is indistinguishable from magic. And that is where we need to go. But you cannot deliver that magic unless you actually are based on information and accurate information.
Yeah, how you organize it, how you analyze it, and how you use it. Again, having good quality information or making there is a human in loop, there is a data in loop, and there's a data engineer in loop, and there are some insights in loop. We are trying to see who is able to automate what and who is best at automation, whether it's human plus machine or human along with machine or machine guided by human or machine generated human validated.
I think data never lies.
No,
People do.
humans can make data lie.
I'm getting dizzy with all these loops, but I want to, I think one thing that we haven't discussed so far in this idea of an organization in the context of business, and I think you alluded to it, Rohit, with hospitality, is that we're human and we're emotional creatures, and we believe in our gut, and we believe in trust. And working within an organization, you need to trust each other, and you need to trust the system, and you need to listen to the signals, as Philip said. It's a complex, adaptive system, reacting to or proactively creating against the market. So you need to be able to truthfully engage with yourself and with others, so that you can continue to build trust, and that trust breeds reputation, and that reputation breeds premium pricing and more customers, and you're able to satisfy the use cases and then expand into adjacent use cases and build your portfolio of business. Go ahead. Sorry.
Sorry, I think 20 years back, if you have to buy a car, you'll ask your relative, hey, I'm going to buy this car, you have this car. Today, you will look up online review. You will look up what others are saying. You'll go to Quora, you'll go to Reddit. So you are a customer is so well informed. Customer drives you, or else you are not going to survive. That's one point.
So, in the context of all this stuff that we've discussed, which is really important and why I wanted to discuss it for the majority of the panel discussion, now that we understand the rules of engagement for surviving in this competitive landscape, now we can talk about artificial intelligence, because now we know the importance of it. So, what is symbolic AI and what is statistical AI, and how would you apply it in the context of a business?
So looking at symbolic AI, it's really the ability to think about things, not strings, and have those concepts as part of the reasoning that a computer does. And that symbolic AI is not made up of things. So that is the world of generative AI and other systems that are stochastic. Symbolic AI is stable. So we define a system of reasoning using rules and concepts. Those concepts and rules and the data that is there can be analyzed and processed. So those rules, the logic that is specified for how those concepts interrelate and the decisions that you can follow paths in a knowledge graph. That is a symbolic system, for instance. That kind of symbolic AI, we know the exact results, but they are painful to build because it takes time. And we can do some guesswork using generative AI, but with a symbolic system, we are 100% accurate to the rules at all times. We know exactly what we get. So that is the trade-off. And the trade-off is very different for human beings, because when we do guesswork, it's very cheap and it's quite easy. It goes immediately. And with things that should be exact, that takes a lot of time to work out. With computers, it's the other way around. It's very cheap to do exact things, but it's quite expensive to actually do the guesswork that is quite good. That's at least how I view it. What do you say?
Yep. When I was working in Microsoft, when we used to design warranty, we used to have some features: the console, the type, the year of manufacturing, and the model. And then we look at a rule-based table. If all the four matches and country X amount of days. If the three match is found, two match is found, one match is found. Obviously, it's 2007 or 8, a very early days. But then when we moved now when I lead a project for one of a South American retailer, we try to do ML to do cluster and see different category of products, and then within each cluster which demonstrates same behavior, we try to do analysis of what kind of products and forecast and things are possible. I would say it's like more of an evolving thing. When I worked in supply chain at that time, before my pre-A era, I was looking at obviously average count, which country, which order, all of them. Today, if I have to relook at that problem, I can look at okay the different if I group which customers have different types of issues, what is common among them. A rule based everything is trying to abstract a pattern. Who does effectively? When we had limited data, we were looking at average who comes to the store last week, last Tuesday, last 2 previous weeks. When you have a lot of data, moving average or weighted moving average, and then move into a regressive approach of step up or step down. When systems are better able to understand the pattern, like the benchmark data set, we trust them. But you are right. How much to trust? How much of it reflects the reality? That's where you need to test and validate. Like somebody can be allergic to one medicine and it may work for somebody else. So you need to know, is it for you and have you tested it for yourself? So I think technology evolves, data evolves, techniques to work with data evolves, but choosing the right technique is your expertise and knowledge and awareness.
Yeah, I think I completely agree with whatever you said. So, what I think from AI perspective and rule-based system is like, so there are use cases where you cannot define the rule-based system, because each and every use case is very different. Like if I talk about the fraud detection, so fraud detection is a very difficult model to build, and I think most of the financial banking system or all other organizations are losing a lot of money via fraud. So people find new ways of committing the fraud. So it's very difficult to define the rule, which we haven't seen, and building the model, which will rule-based model or otherwise like for training for the new unseen cases, right? So it's very difficult to see the world what's coming up in the future. So it's always a trade-off of building the rule-based system versus the AI-based system. So we cannot define rules for everything. So the world is not working on the rule-based thing. So we all have different belief system, different ways of approaching the life. So we don't follow the same template as a human. So I think we learn. I think AI is learning everything from human, right? So artificial neural network coming up from our own neurons, right? Even all AI models, how we work, reinforcement learning, how our brain function. We get the positive like penalty for negative things and some reward for positive things. So I think we all are interrelated, AI and human. So it's just that computers work on strongly on rule-based system and human are completely different. So it's like finding a perfect solution, which is a semi automation, semi AI. I think I imagine a world going towards semi AI, which is a better world.
Now there's a combination that is very much emerging, as you're saying, the neurosymbolic AI. I think we're maybe coming back to that, but it's the symbolic AI, as you say, and we can look at to humans as well. So would we want a human to actually specifically lay down the rules for this one and do the same process over and over again? Are we willing to go into specifying that process in full detail? Are we willing to trust them to do right most of the time? Or are we okay to just spend 5 minutes, whatever the outcome, that's okay, just go ahead with it? Then we would get very different answers from a regular human being. And I think that we can apply similar thinking here as well, that sometimes you don't need the full quality, but sometimes you do. And so what is the trade-off, and how much are you willing to spend to actually get it right? I think that was an excellent way to put it.
It's like when we look at benchmark, when a VGGNet or ResNet or any architecture came, how they benchmark, they have 1,000 class prediction. in this 1,000 class, if a system is going to predict, it is 99.5%. So within this 1,000 class, if you ask a human to experiment, he will also get 90%. System is also meeting 90%. So every use case is tied to some benchmark data set, but we humans can learn more, relate more, or can reason more. Obviously, the learning procedures are different, although back propagation, there are certain things out there. It does have its own gradient exploding or vanishing gradient, a few other things, and we call it as attention or it's all abstraction to some extent, as long as longer the network, longer the context switches, and trying to add more residual nets, or having more like query attention, or how do you find the, it's all like earlier you had KNN, and now you see which is the nearest word to give attention to, and then earlier you were doing document TF IDF index, now you have embedding. The way we are trying to organize information is becoming more mature. How you organize information in video, how you organize information in text. So looking back only at database tables to finding a knowledge across all type of data, like, able to hear, able to speak, able to see, every other senses is becoming a AI sense. And our human imagination of imagination, thinking, creativity, when system can generate from a text to image or image to image, it's kind of like it's a wow effect. But then what extent understanding the limitation is also key. Things have been built and it's able to give a breakthrough, but then how do you use it? It's more like a blind man seeing the horse. As long as you see it being applied to your need, you will feel it is a rope. As long as you feel it's applied to your need, you might say it looks like a flat surface. So we are all trying to apply in our own lens, but again, being aware of its weakness will help us to better utilize it than trying to be over reliant. And it's not that we are going to dump yesterday's work and to start totally new. How you evolve from where you are to what is today, and is that a meaningful thing that drives your sustainable adoption or sustainable innovation, or how you are going to be in business managing competition, in-house technology, quality data, all of them. It's a very interrelated thing. Like,
One thing I really enjoy about panel discussions is the synthesis and analysis of these ideas, though they may seem fundamental and people have very hard opinions about it for commercial or whatever other kind of reasons. I think we paint a picture that it's a fuzzy adoption and fuzzy implementation of these technologies. And we have the capacity to learn as human agents. We have a domain, we have a hypothesis, we have a use case that we are solving, and we may not be able to use symbolic AI initially because it's expensive. We don't know everything to do with the domain. We don't know all the vocabularies, all the rules, all the actors, all the signals. And until we do, we need to rely on probability. If I do this, will this happen in a positive way? If I try it 100 times, what's the probability that it's going to be a positive scenario? What are the signals that guarantee that a positive outcome will happen? But a hybrid approach in a dynamic, ever-shifting market is to me seems the most progressive, at least until we figure out what the hell this technology does and how.
I would say that we're seeing probably similar ways of applying AI or at least this is the synthesis that I see a little bit of the conversation. That, we start with using, linear regression is not good enough for many of the use cases because we cannot see beyond those limitations. But an AI machine learning model can, in most cases, actually predict way better than we can. We don't know exactly how, but it does a better prediction. But as we go along, I think that more and more can actually be captured. So we can capture the symbolics, we can capture the concepts and the terms. And the better we actually define that as a business and we actually constrain that in, we learn about our business, we document that part of the business, we document the rules as we learn them. And we also use the AI, we see, okay, we can actually constrain this area, it works really, really well, so let it do that work. And basing the business on actual knowledge means you actually retain it for the long haul. Because if you're having a guesswork, a black box, well, it will work now, but what happens when the market shifts or something else happens? Do you know the fundamentals of that business? So I think there is a progression to go in the way that you discover a lot of things. You use AI to discover a lot of things and then move towards rule-based systems sometimes. But also when you have the limitations of the rule-based system, you go in the other direction because it's easier to capture based on speed. You need to go faster. Then you cannot go with having a rules-based approach because that will be slow to actually figure out all the time. So I think it will always be a back and forth between these. And that is probably why we also have the statistical winters and the symbolic winters and those going large waves every 10 years, something like that in terms of the hypes.
I think one thing what I wanted to what I see is also like when you look at hype or innovator or disruptor, until ChatGPT came, there were so many other things of use of AI, and your chatbot is sentient and something. I mean, like there can be some hypes which will appear as disruptors. Reusable rockets from Tesla. Until Tesla proved it, the rockets are reusable. There was no real commercial adoption. Everybody were trying it out. And until there were electric cars or battery-driven cars, but autopilot, although I mean the first one to do, who is a real innovator, he's going to guide the market. Like everybody had data, but nobody had this idea of ChatGPT moment, extremely user-centric on all of these APIs, and the way the reach it had. Nobody, if Facebook had data, Google had data, Twitter had data, but Microsoft had data. Who prepared it? Somebody who is a real disruptor is going to come there. Then everybody will be a follower, and you need to see who is a disruptor and whom you are going to follow. Plus, you need to be sure. I've seen a period wherein like once in I do remember in my previous organization where they said 3 years data beyond that it's of no use. You should archive it. The leadership was so hell bent on not to save any historical data because it's of no value. It's adding storage cost. Today, your historical data is a gold mine. Whoever has data can build a model. So the mind shift of how you see data, what is important, how you are able to foresee what's going to be there tomorrow, how you truly understand the tech, that's very, very important. Which again, the hype versus disruptor and innovator, you should be able to know, which is very difficult at this point to know it's an innovator or disruptor until somebody truly lives up to it.
I think you're making an excellent point in terms of the reasons for organizing data there, Sivram. And I'd like to extract that from what you were saying in terms of if you actually contextualize the data you have, it's much easier to actually make use of it. Because if you know it and it's correctly, you can actually put a lot of use for that in the entire enterprise to drive AI models or to drive better decision-making or producing better content, whatever it is. But if you haven't organized it and you don't know what it is, and you actually have data popping up in the wrong context, then suddenly that is no good. So I'd like to extract that because I think that is between the lines of what you were saying.
That's information short sight. Information short sight. People don't see the value of data. People feel what they have seen is enough. When they are not able to, look through this value, obviously, whatever data that existed that was not trained, now everybody goes and builds their own LLMs. Like Rohit mentioned, every day it's moving. Every model is coming a day, one model a day. So things do change. But yeah, you're right. How are they really seeing the value out of it? Are they investing on the right touch points? Are we collecting the right data? And it takes cost. Like people might feel it's an hardware cost, it's a storage cost, it's a overhead, and we don't see any value. And there may not be a common shared goal. If you look through one of the threads where within Amazon, there was a Twitter thread which was going on, which referred why we were not able to build something big, because obviously annotating this much huge data, doing a reinforcement learning, and seeing a common shared goal. Like if you remember Alexa, sing a song, play a song, that was a viral thing. But then after some time, where did it go? It was more of a YouTube plus voice-based song player. So I think people do touch some of the areas, but you are right. There's a long way to go because it's easier to paint a 20-year car and get refurbished and make it look new. But the internals of the engine, how it works, what you have truly innovated, that makes the difference.
I think, unless you have something to say to that, Rohit?
I think I completely agree. So I think not everyone is visionary as few people are. So not everyone looks at the data that way. So I think the historical data is very important, and where I feel is the need arises of time series database, as I given the presentation yesterday. So it's very important. I think every industry is trying to capture historical data going forward. Even one of the use cases like banking systems. So even banking has been doing the trading for last like 30, 40 years, 50 years, but they haven't captured any pricing data. And now they are buying it from the Reuters, Bloomberg for running their pricing models. So, I mean, see the difference. Like they have given the data to Bloomberg, and then Bloomberg did capture it, and then they are selling it back to the banking. So it's like who is realizing the importance of data. So this is very important. Who realize it is making a lot of money nowadays. Data is asset for them.
I would, I would add to that, actually, Roy, because in essence, we're talking very much about or at least the feel and gist of what we're talking about is very much about the large enterprise. But this also goes for the small startups, small companies as well, so that we don't lose out that perspective as well to actually capture the information that we capture in all of our channels, etc., and trying to structure it out because it's actually valuable. Those small comments that a customer makes. Capturing that and the context around it means that 2 years down the line, and we continue to capture the same information, well, suddenly we can actually see a string of information, and we will be able to better use AI downstreams to actually do some kind of analysis over that information, because we get more and more of those capabilities. And I think that many of the listeners would think about that as well, that, oh, yeah, that's I can take that column in my database or that node in my database, and I take a lot of things out of that. I just run it through ChatGPT, and I get some insight out of that information. Make sure that you do it with privacy enabled in a good way, so that you don't lose out that perspective. But you can use Copilot and other privacy enabled AIs to do that kind of analysis. And I think that is an important thing to also think about. It doesn't have to be super complicated, super big systems to do this. It can be super easy on your own computer. You can even run a local model on your computer to do parts of that analysis, which is completely private. It's not that hard to actually spin up a model.
Very true. I think the information, first organizing information was a challenge, cost of information. Second is hiring someone with the knowledge was also a challenge. Third is what if I have a model which is acting as a knowledgeable resource as well as it's affordable. That has made everybody well informed. 10 years back or 15 years back, if you ask what questions you have to ask to your CTO or company strategy or vision, there may not be anybody in the room who would be ready upfront. But today, if you ask, you have to see how many of them have used Perplexity or ChatGPT or Olama, and people are well informed. You know where to get decision. And again, you are right. People without data, with model, can still compete with bigger companies because the information and how you process information, those guidelines are provided with these models. So in a way, it is complementing. It will be a productivity enhancer. You are right. It will help them disrupt. 5 years back, if you have to start a resume enrichment startup, people will ask how many million resumes you have, how many intent recognition model you have built, and how many summarization model you have built. Today, you just need to have one large language model. You can have a product in a week. So
Yes.
I think you need to spot the opportunities, spot the right opportunities, relevant opportunities where there's a necessity, not a technology overkill. And then one important case, what I liked is how Khan Academy has leveraged AI in terms of asking questions based on your learning speed. You may be a slow learner, or you like diagram based, or you like question based, or scenario based. So I think commercial need is one, responsible use is one, education or something which is good to human is one. So I think you need to trade off all of it. It's more like, information is available. What you consume is up to you. What kind of information?
One last bit of an idea that we really didn't discuss, but I think it would be good to bring to the end, is this idea of rigidity versus flexibility, or discovery versus execution. So one thing that kills startups is if they can't find a use case to solve profitably in an efficient use of their resources. Like in a business scenario, if they grow too big and they're executing and trying to extract value from an industry by solving a use case, but they're not doing it in an efficient manner, or someone comes and disrupts them because they have found access to more competitive information, or they can do it in a better, cheaper way, they're going to die also. So yeah, there's the need to collect data, but there's also the need to employ it in a way that creates lasting competitive advantage. And we shouldn't ever stop figuring out new ways of collecting or enhancing or enriching historical or existing data. But that should be a priority for startups who are looking for product market fit. They have a hypothesis. They need to acquire as much intellectual property and knowledge to find that product market fit as quickly as possible. And for businesses to develop new products to create sustainable competitive advantages with their existing customer relationships. Um, any last thoughts that you guys would like to add to the topic of accurate and precise AI?
Yeah, I would just say that you're spot on there. It's not about the technology, it's about the applied technology that actually moves the business forward. And that is the core idea of it. Spending too much time on organizing data or working on a specific technology without understanding the business needs is doomed to fail.
Yes. Uh, Very true. I think hello world is easier at this time. Real world is difficult. How you know what to spot, when to pivot, that's the key. Plus, if you are there is enough tools which can speed up, provided your idea is worthy enough.
Yeah, I think still we need a lot of effort to make it accurate and precise AI, because AI is not accurate at the moment. It's more of an art, how we are fitting the model, how we are getting the responses. So it will take some time to be more accurate, giving the more accurate results. Even ChatGPT fails sometimes doing normal mathematical calculations. So I mean, those kind of errors are still there. So we definitely we need to improve on those use cases. So it will still take some time to become more accurate and precise AI. So yeah.
Thanks for a great panel.
Yeah, I think this was the best possible combination of panelists, and I hope I hope you guys got a lot of value out of that. We're gonna take a short break, and we're gonna move on to the next one. So with that, thank you very much for taking part in this panel, guys. Uh, yeah, we'll do it again sometime.
You're most
Thank you.
welcome. Enjoy your day. Cheers. Bye bye.
Yes.